Welcome to Concerning the Spiritual and Art, a podcast exploring spirituality, consciousness, and the creative process. I'm your host, Martin Benson. All right, y'all, welcome back to the podcast. I have an amazing, mind-blowing, beautiful, heart-opening episode today with visual artist Si Golraine. And man, we went to an incredible place with our conversation, but it really began around her spiritual origins, her experience with healing, like dealing with some deep suffering and physical ailments that led her to some holistic healing, where she started to understand sort of the nature of the vibrational frequencies of the universe and how they heal our minds, our bodies, our spirits, working with a holistic practitioner, which then kind of like spiraled her on this journey of discovery that led her to places that are just incredibly inspiring in terms of our dialogue, like just learning about her journey. Her art is incredible. She uses vibration and electricity to create her paintings, quote unquote, that are on sheets of titanium, where she uses electrical currents going through this medium of her brush that creates these various colorations based on the voltage of the electricity, changes the color of the titanium. This sort of metallurgy kind of adaptation of her technique is just, it's super fascinating. But this is such a heart opening episode and so inspirational for me. Like just coming out of the recording the podcast a few minutes ago, my heart is just so wide open. And I hope that after you listen to it, you'll feel the same way. So here you go, Si Golraine. All right, Si, how are you doing today? Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm so excited to finally connect with you. How are things going?
Things are going really well. I've been excited all morning about our conversation and
Yeah.
did a little bit of meditation and a stretch to kind of ground myself in.
Yeah, definitely. That's the best way to do it, kind of get your energy settled. And I'm just super excited to connect. I know we kind of were going back and forth for a couple of weeks with young kids. Life just comes up, interruptions. But like we talked about off camera, like these conversations are meant to happen when they're meant to happen. And the energy feels really good today. We're approaching a new moon tomorrow. And I'm just really excited to connect with you and your fascinating work, learn about your journey. And I think a really cool way for us to kind of open up this dialogue is to explore sort of your background with your spirituality. Like, at what point did you like consciously begin exploring your spirituality, and like where did that come through? Was it as a young age or was it later in life? And then at what point did that start to like weave into your creative practice?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like as a child, I was always curious. I couldn't really I didn't really have a specific like practice or a way of teaching to kind of ground myself in. I'm kind of, a post-Soviet Union
Mm,
child. So, my parents didn't follow any religions or, spirituality, religion, or something that's beyond ourselves was never really a subject of conversation.
mm.
Um, but I was always curious, and I started like looking up Jung's teachings. I remember when I was like 12 or something.
Oh, wow, at 12.
I
Wow.
couldn't really wrap my head around it, but
Yeah.
I was just like fascinated and curious.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but then later, so I moved here to New York when I was 18 to study in college.
And you
And
moved from Ukraine, right? You're talking about
yes,
post-Soviet Union, so you're from Ukraine. Okay, cool.
Ukraine, yeah. So I moved here, and it's interesting because it kind of started for me with going into holistic medicine. That started because I was really sick. So I
Mm,
found somebody introduced me to this holistic doctor. And I was so poor that I couldn't really afford any healing. So
mm.
just, out of her kindness, she just got me around to help her in the office, like as a way to pay back for my healing.
Wow.
And that was really incredible and really life-changing for me because
Mm,
um, her way of diagnostics and healing was all in sort of this like new quantum physics technologies like bioresonance,
Mm-hmm.
like drive, sort of reading the frequencies of cells, reprogramming the frequencies of cells. Um, and of course, there's all kinds of interesting people that end up in holistic medicine world that
Oh yeah,
believe all kinds of things.
of
So
course.
yes, so that was really eye-opening for me in terms of like, learning about chakras and learning about spirituality and how it relates to quantum physics.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a big inspirational point for me. And and I also really resonated with that because I spent my childhood in Ukraine as a classical musician playing piano. So I feel like that's where also spirituality originated for me because I had an amazing teacher, amazing piano teacher that always just kind of um, grounded me in this emotional part of art, like emotional part of music,
Mm.
the subtle space versus being so focused on like the technique, and
Uh,
like playing it exactly how this composer
mm.
wanted you to play it 400 years ago, like
That's amazing. They're letting you bring yourself into the work, which is what makes it so powerful, right?
yes, yes.
Mm.
So when I got into like the holistic medicine world, it kind of expanded my view of music because I was like, wow, like it's frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is frequency. We are frequency, and that
Mm-hmm.
frequency carries its own information
Yes,
and has like I just saw it, I witnessed it in my own eyes with my own eyes on patients that we were working with, how those frequencies can change the way that our body and beings are operated.
definitely. Wow.
So that was a big sort of step for me. And then later on, I got into therapy that really helped me greatly. And then I started practicing Vipassana meditation
Mm-hmm.
and went on to silent retreats, 10-day silent retreats.
Yeah.
And that sort of like capped it off for me, where like all of those things are sort of like the connecting elements of where I am as a person today and like
Wow.
what my practice is these days.
Wow. Man, that's so beautiful the way that you've kind of like, I feel like I have a similar story in that like my whole spiritual journey began through like really deep suffering and illness, like getting super sick and
Mhm.
like facing like my mortality, experiencing insane pain in my body, emotional pain, all of that. But it became like this incredible catalyst. Like we think about, like you mentioned Carl Jung, like thinking about the shadow or thinking about like confronting like these dark elements within us in order to liberate them with the light of consciousness. All
Yeah.
that was like a huge part of my journey in healing, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual healing was a huge part of it, getting into holistic medicine, thinking about vibration and frequency and how we're treating our bodies, our minds, all of that. So super resonant with how that works because it makes perfect sense when we get down to the reality of what the universe is really made of, which is, I mean, really light. And that
Yeah.
light has a certain waveform, which is a frequency, a certain vibrational tone that kind of creates everything, you know?
Yeah.
It kind of makes me think a lot when I think about frequency. When you think about like the first words of like the Old Testament in the Bible, like in the beginning was the word, and like what is a word but a sound wave, a vibration, a frequency,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
from that came everything. And so I don't know, this is where like I go deep into it because it's like it makes so much sense when you really
Definitely.
explore and feel it for yourself. What was
Yep.
that like first moment like when you were in your healing process where you started to feel like a release or like a letting go of like some kind of pattern or frequency in your body or mind where you felt like there was this tonal shift inside of you? Do you remember like a specific moment, like, or a specific practice that you were doing where you began to start to feel like the potency of that kind of medicine?
Yes, I it's funny you asked that question. It like literally brought me back to a moment when I just started healing at the holistic medicine office with, these frequency devices and also, um, herbal medicine and, this one day, like I remember in the beginning, it was really tough for me because like my body was not used to all of this stuff. And like sometimes, like your liver can feel challenged because there's so much detox going on
Mm-hmm.
time. So like your lymphatic system, your liver, like is not really trained to really release so much of
Mm-hmm.
and heavy metals and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but then like I kind of fought through it and just kind of like continued to drink more water and just like really believing in the process, just having
Mm-hmm.
faith.
That's a
Um,
huge part of it too, right? The consciousness, right? Like the
yeah,
mindset. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and trust for
Yes,
sure.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and then I remember one day I was like, I just felt so much more energy. Like it was like it just felt like magic,
Mm-hmm.
because when I came to her originally, I did not have I had like autoimmune disease issues and like I did not have energy to like operate the most basic like things, like
Mm-hmm.
basic tasks. And I remember this feeling of just this incredible energy, just like feeling vital, feeling like I have the resources to
Mm-hmm.
be myself, like I have the resources to continue this healing process and just,
Yeah.
you know, being able to do more, not just
Mm-hmm.
with my body, but also with my consciousness, with my focus,
Mm-hmm.
with the way that, information kind of gets processed. Within me. So it was literally just this one day. And I remember like I've done so many things in that day and I just like still had energy. And I was like, I
Yeah,
mean,
you started to see your potential to like get the energy back like how it should be when the system
yeah,
is working efficiently and properly and there's no waste of energy from the stressors of all the environmental, battles that we have to play against in this kind of pretty toxic world that we've created through the
yeah,
industrial process of how we make our products and what we do with our food and all of that. I mean, for me, that was exactly like my experience too, was like beginning to like reclaim my energy
yeah,
again. Once I learned how to treat my body, once I learned how to create space for my body to heal itself. And I think
yeah,
in a lot of ways, it's like these modalities are just basically creating a container for the body to maximize its own healing
yes,
process. It's just
absolutely.
bolstering that again. Because like I look at my children, like the abundant energy in them, like they do not get tired. It is constant. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah,
and as we get older, we think it's like cool to like that. It's just part of getting older that our energy wanes and we're just more taxed easily. And yeah, there's probably a degree of truth to that. But I
yes,
also think it's because we've literally been kind of like not cultivating the right environment for our body to be as vital as it should or could be. But when
yeah,
you start to feel that again for the first time, it's such like a revelation of like, oh, this is what I've been missing. Like that kind
yeah,
of sense of aliveness, of like
yeah,
that subtle vibration of just what it feels like to breathe and feel the air on your skin and hear the birds chirp and see the light come through your eyes into your consciousness. You know what I mean? Like all of that sort of sensational experiences. It's
yeah,
so powerful. And so I think that's so beautiful that you are able to begin that process and to find someone who is willing to like work with you to help bring those kinds of medicines and practices into your life. Like, wow, what a blessing that
yes.
is,
It
right?
really, really was.
It's unbelievable, like the grace that the universe shines on us when we allow ourselves to receive it, The
Yeah,
mind can block away so much. And I bet
that,
you kind of explored that at your Vipassana retreat.
oh,
I've
yes.
done that before too. And yeah,
Oh,
that is for anyone out there that doesn't understand like what we're talking about with Vipassana, it's a meditative process in the Buddhist tradition. And these 10-day retreats, you went to like a Goenka retreat?
Yes.
Yeah, so Goenka was like a teacher of Theravada Buddhism that explored Vipassana, which is insight meditation. But the way that you learn or the way that you dive deep in as you do the 10-day silent retreat, where literally you're not making eye contact with people, you're not talking, you're literally sitting and meditating for 10 plus hours a
Yep.
day.
Yep.
And it's very challenging. However, I don't know your experience, but from mine, and I would love to hear your experience about that. I think it'd be cool to talk a little bit about it. You start to really feel the energetics of your own body through the exploration of sensation and
Yeah.
the rising and falling of sensation, the impermanent nature of the coming and going of not just what's happening through the thinking mind, but what's happening through the energy of the body.
Yep.
And it's super challenging, but there's stages where you release and you let go of certain attachments, and you feel this flow and freedom of energy move through you. That's kind of indescribable.
Yeah.
It almost feels like you're connected to some energetic system that's just like buzzing. Every cell in your body is just
Yeah.
alive, and it's life changing. I mean, my meditation practice changed forever after that retreat. Like my
Yeah.
meditation practice never was the same in the best way after that. So anyone
That's
out there who are big meditators who've never done anything like that, highly recommend it. Anyone out there who wants to start meditation practice and wants to dive into Goenka retreat, that's badass. Good luck. You'll be great. It'll be
incredible.
hard as shit, but like, man, that's brave and incredible. But I couldn't recommend it enough. Like, what drew you to that retreat? Like, what was your experience like on that retreat?
Well, I found out about it through reading Young Pueblo.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
yes, I was reading his book Lighter, and he was referring to Vipassana there quite a few times. And I was like, I'm definitely interested. And so I went, and like you said, it was an absolutely life-changing experience. And I felt that the system of meditation itself resonated with me so much because it's the one meditation where, there's no visualization, there's no music or mantras being used. So you're really left with yourself to really observe the relationship between uh, the mind and matter, and like
Mm-hmm.
really through those sensations, when you really get deeper and deeper into it, like maybe for me, it was like day 6, day 7, like
Mm-hmm.
I was really able to see like with that arising sensation of pain or bubbling or
Mm-hmm.
heat, or whatever it is in the body, how that instantly like, you can see your own psychosomatics where with the rise of that sensation, there's the rise of a thought.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we can really like experience the psychosomatics of like this weight, this sort of like weight of memories, weight of traumas, weight of, certain things that happened in life or certain sort of programmed beliefs, like how they really live in our body and how
Mm-hmm.
they are one, how they
Exactly.
multifaceted way of existence. And
Yeah.
through observing them and being conscious about them and without like trying to push them away or fight them over or like there's no way to not pay attention, they're gonna
Mm-hmm.
come, what I like,
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
how that is so like it's so transformative. And I remember the first retreat that I went to on day 3, the first 2 days were just like, oh my God, it's
Yeah,
like,
it's a shock to the system if you're not used
yeah,
to sitting for that long, just the pain of sitting.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then the third day, when you actually start practicing the Vipassana,
Hmm.
scanning the body, I remember the first moments when we started doing it, I literally like I could not, with closed eyes, I could not tell the difference where my body begins and the space ends.
Yes, the
Like,
boundary, right?
yeah, and like the space between like my liver and my heart. Like, first of all, I could feel all of my internal organs, and then
Hmm.
just like there's so much more of like molecular and subtle awareness that like your experience of your own body, it's just like this like living and breathing like vibrational
Exactly.
orchestra.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, because it is when you get down, like you talked about the quantum, right? And I feel like in a way, when you get that focused with the mind, because really the concentration and meditative practice is super crucial to develop first. Before there's insight, there has to be deep concentration.
Yeah.
That's why the first couple of days of the retreat, yeah, are like really focused on like shamatha, like, calm abiding, but like concentrative energy in the mind. So you could really
Yeah.
sharpen. And then when the mind becomes very sharp, then it can penetrate deep into the subtle layers of the energy of the body. And you
Yeah.
really get into feeling your body in a way that you might not have ever felt before. Or, you know what I mean? In terms of like what you're talking
Yeah.
about, like knowing where your organs are, like feeling the subtle nature of the way the energy is moving through all the vessels of your body, channels, for example, you'd mentioned chakras, like our nadis, like thinking about these like channels of energy flow. Like you start to actually feel the chakras, the nadis, that you feel the way that energy moves through you. It's
Yeah.
kind of incredible. But I think for me, one of the key things was it was like it unlocked this relationship with the mind and body to see that like whatever thoughts are arising, to like create this spaciousness between the observer and the thought and the sensation, and seeing like almost from like a, I don't know, like a 10,000 foot view, and seeing the whole system working
Yeah.
together. And so it kind of like dismantled certain attachments to like thought patterns,
Definitely.
patterns of how you think about yourself, the patterns of how you judge others. And you kind of get into this space where you don't give much credence to your thought patterns as you
Yes.
used to. You don't judge yourself based on the thoughts, because the thoughts are not really relevant to who you are, you
Yes.
know? And
Yeah,
it's a
you're right.
really shift in your relationship with your own mind. And for me, in such a positive way that allowed me to not be so victimized by my own, I guess, perception of my own thinking. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. 'Cause
Yeah. It's,
you're like you really like train yourself to become more of an observer, like you said.
mm-hmm,
And then, it's like an intense training after which, you have that less of those attachments to your thoughts and also to what's going on in your life and other people,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
conversations and, everything that's going on.
Yeah. I loved the last day too, when you like, so the last day of the retreat, after you've just been like, man, going deep into the quantum universe of your own, mind, body, energy, soul, spirit, what, I don't know how to call it. It doesn't need a name. Then
Yes.
you do a loving kindness practice the last day, compassion meditation. And holy shit, like what a perfect way to end such an intense retreat. What talk about grounding and really getting down into like what this is all about, which is our shared humanity and this capacity to love and to be empathetic and to care and shine compassion through action in the world and be a vessel for that kind of energy. I mean, it was like that was like I literally like felt like my heart expanded to the edges of the perceived universe and
Yeah.
then collapsed back. That was probably the greatest day of it all, because it really made it kind of brought it all home for me, because what we do as artists, what we do in our lives, those things aren't going to necessarily last. Nothing really does, right? But the energy, the way that we like move in the world, the way we make people feel, the way that we like are there to shine care and love on the people we know and people we don't know. Like I feel like that kind of energy or frequency of consciousness extends infinitely
Yeah.
into eternity. And
Yeah.
that's where the rubber really meets the road. Everything else is just sort of a vehicle to enact that energy in some way. But that's my own sort of personal take. So I'm
Yeah.
curious for you, like, as you're going through this healing process, as you're kind of really diving deep into your heart, into your sense of self and your spirit and who you are, like, at what point did like that kind of insight that you got from that start to seep into your creative process and your visual art practice?
Yeah, I feel like sort of the style that I'm working with now and the medium that I'm working with now is greatly informed by all of that because, and Vipassana as well. Because when I paint or draw, my paintings kind of came from a big sort of drawing breakthrough that happened to me in like 2021.
Hmm.
Um, and I was just finding myself in moments when I would just make marks on paper in a very, very subtle way, like almost like frequency kind of way. Um, and it's like, it was kind of like that Vipassana like moments for me or style for me where I'm not really trying to make anything like I don't really have a plan. I'm not making any outlines or forms. I'm just like existing within my own breath and very subtle movements of the pen. And I really, I really started to feel like a resonant space started to be created out of it.
Mm.
That sort of, you know, the field of consciousness or, quantum vacuum or whatever you want to call it, this sort of like reality of being that we can't, it's not how we see reality because we're in this third dimension, but
Hmm.
kind of like we're finding out more and more that it's this is what it really is.
Hmm.
And I remember like the first drawings that started to happen in this kind of technique. Um, I was just in tears, I was in tears because I could feel what I was seeing on this sort of like vibrational level, and it was like resonating with, I guess, the vibration of my own self.
Hmm.
And it was born from this very gentle place, not very forceful, um, not judgmental, like, less expectations, and I felt like I was seen as a person of who I am in that technique.
Wow.
Um, and and so I just kept on drawing and drawing and drawing, making like hundreds of drawings in that way. And then I was kind of challenged with how to paint it because it like I was working in like acrylics and oils and at the time, and I just felt like it just wasn't clicking, um, like it wasn't really carrying
Hmm.
that vibration, that frequency that I was like going after.
Mm.
And then I stumbled upon the medium of electricity on titanium, which really kind of like connected all these dots for me in terms of
Wow.
like, my experience in sort of like bioresonance frequency, um, music, visual art, spirituality, sort of like a way of painting with electricity, which is the energy of life.
Hmm.
And it's just so sensitive. I mean, it basically works with like different voltages of electricity, turn the molecular structure of titanium in different colors.
Wow.
So it's like, 30 volts is blue, and then 50 volts is yellow, and 70 is pink.
That's incredible. Wow. That the voltage relates to the color,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
that makes me think also just about like light itself is that way too. Like the certain frequency
Yes.
of a wave is what determines what color, right?
Yep.
In terms of like how, optics work. But like the
Yeah,
electricity is doing the same thing.
exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's just like, I feel like when I think of spirituality, sometimes people feel like it's something like that exists outside of our experience, or like it's
Hmm.
something kind of like that you have to believe in, or you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I just feel like that's just the reality, and our material reality is a part, like it's all one. It's sort of like I see it in this very holistic way
Hmm.
where, matter, science, spirit, like it's just all one mechanism, really.
Hmm.
Uh,
Exactly. Yeah, it's our mind that wants to like, and the ego that wants to control, wants to divide, wants to
yes,
categorize, wants to
yes,
separate. And there's a practicality to that in order to like exist and survive and live and try to navigate the three-dimensional experience, of being in
yeah,
this like body. But like that's not the whole story.
definitely. Yeah, yeah. I feel like in the last, hundreds of years, the humanity it's been like, okay, let's take this thing apart and like see what like
Exactly. Everything is reductive based. It's like
stuff.
reductive science. It's like
Yeah,
let's break it apart into its subsequent parts and then we'll learn about it. But like, I don't know, it makes me think a lot about like this idea in Buddhist philosophy called like dependent co-arising, which has to do with the fact that like, for example, like this microphone right here. Yeah, right now we can call it a microphone. But if I start to take it apart and I lay out all its parts on this table over here, is it a microphone now?
yeah,
At what point does it become a microphone? And at what point does it not? And
yeah,
so it's like, so it's from that scientific perspective to like try to understand the essence of something by looking at its parts is really handicapping your vision of what actually is going on.
yeah. No,
Does
that's
that
a
make
great.
sense? And it's kind of a really heady philosophical thing to really contemplate. But when you really look at it, like the apple, right? Like if I smash or not, maybe not the apples, things that come from nature are like kind of existent, but things that we make, right?
Yeah,
Like at what point does the bicycle become a bicycle if I break all the pieces down and throw it on the ground? Is it a
yeah,
bike at that point? It's not.
yeah,
It's a bunch
yeah,
of component parts. But at some point it comes together and then it's the bike,
yeah,
right? But the bike, the essence of bike is not in the parts. It's in the relationship of all the parts together.
definitely. Yeah. I love how you put that together. And it's like we've got so sucked into like the research of all of those parts separately that now I feel like it's really time to create a new system of thought that is more unifying, and there are all
Exactly.
scientists that are working on it. One particular scientist that I love so much, Nassim Haramein.
Oh yeah, I know his work. Incredible.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm just so inspired by his work,
Big time. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, like in my practice, I just feel like what keeps me so excited about it is that it kind of like unifies all of those things together. Like there's
Hmm.
scientific aspect of what is going on, right? The electricity,
Yeah.
molecular structure of titanium into different colors. But then at the same time, there's this energetic component of, painting with energy or how sensitive that mechanism is to me or
Hmm.
to the touch. It's kind of like a musical instrument where
Yeah.
the length of a brush stroke informs the color. The intensity of how much I press it informs what color comes out, like
Wow.
it's just so sensitive and like I really love it because I'm essentially a pianist, right? I spent 11 years playing
Hmm.
piano when I was growing up. So I do get that joy out of it of like really you know, like playing like it's almost like I'm playing this instrument.
Yeah, right. Like you're so connected to the medium that's translating that energy, like that, like you can manipulate its, how it's going to express itself on the titanium based on, like you said, like angle, pressure, length of the mark. Like there's so many subtle little nuanced changes that you can make in the way you turn your wrist or the way that you curve a line or whatever that's going to make a surprising mark that you can't really quite, you're controlling it but you're also not, it's
Yeah.
kind of like this nice, it seems to me like this really beautiful balance of control and letting go,
Yes.
right? Because at the end of the day, it's not like I can be like, I want red there and I want it this exact line. Like, I'm going to tape this off. I'm going to make it perfect and I'm going to paint
Yeah.
the red. Like, I'm going to control every parameter I can to get the
Yeah.
exact thing that I want. But what you're doing is more like, okay, I'm going to try to have this dialogue or this dance with this medium in this process, and I'm going to like work with it to let the image come out as it needs to and not really have a clear indication of exactly how it needs to be. And I think there's probably some freedom in that, is there not? Like a freedom of like discovery, and something's very exciting about that because you never really know what's really going to happen.
Yeah, no, definitely there's freedom in it and excitement of like every painting kind of feels like its own innovation, because the
Mm-hmm.
medium itself has so many specific like physicalities and limitations about it. Like I can only go up the voltage and not down. So it's like, oh, I want pink there, but if I want pink there, that means that I'm not going to be able to have all those five other colors there ever again in this painting. So it's
Yeah.
like this sort of like finality about
Wow.
what's going on. That is just kind of like I just have to, in order to like make a painting that really feels loose and in the moment, I just have to have this like this bravery and this just like this greater sense of like there's no coming back, there's no painting over, like
Mm-hmm.
it's just what it is. It's gonna be
Yeah.
it's gonna be.
That's incredible. I mean, I'm just looking at like one of your pieces behind you on screen. I mean, it's just like the luminosity you get, the texture, the shifts in value that you're able to achieve. I mean, it's quite incredible. And I'm curious, like, can you maybe talk a little bit about like the tool itself? Like, so you have like this, you're using an electric current. And what is the current attached to? Is it attached to like some kind of like metal rod that you paint with? Like, can you change like the width of that rod? Like, maybe talk to us a little bit about like just the mechanism that allows you to transmit that electrical current onto the titanium.
Yeah, so it's a DC power supply that I'm using that goes from 0 to 120 volts because that's just kind of a range of
Mm-hmm.
where titanium is reactive to it. And then, you have two alligator clips that come out of it, the positive and the negative. So I connect the positive to the sheet of titanium with the alligator clip. And then the negative I connect to a brush that is wired with a titanium wire.
Mm.
So it's like through the metal of the brush, I'm able to create the closing of the current.
So does the
So
current go through the bristles?
it does
So
because
they're conductive. The bristles are conductive.
they are conductive because I
Whoa.
brush in distilled water with a little bit of baking soda so that the water becomes conductive.
Ah,
Yeah.
interesting. Wow, that's so cool. And like how did like where you said you like stumbled across it? Like was it like was someone else doing something similar, or did you just see like the reaction and be like that could be a way of like mark making and like image making? Like can you maybe tell us a little bit about that like discovery?
Yeah, absolutely. I was working as a creative director at the time for this company called Eating Tools, and they sell, it's kind of like a gallery, a curated gallery of handcrafted kitchen tools and a lot of like sort of collector knives
Mm-hmm.
that are made in this like super intricate ways, sort of like the contemporary art world of knives.
Got
And
you.
there's there are like people forging out of meteorites and like all these crazy patterns of Damascus and like using dinosaur bones for handles. It's just like
Whoa.
wild.
Yeah. High end.
Yes, high end. Yeah. And so there are all these different like techniques in metallurgy. And I feel like what really drives a lot of people that make those objects is the passion for metallurgy and, the techniques to work with it.
Hmm.
And so titanium in general these days, it's kind of like becoming famous a
Hmm.
little bit in terms of its usage in the medical industry. It's also coming into the culinary world because it has all of these interesting attributes to it of
Hmm.
the resistance to heat. It's very dense and strong, but it's very light. So they're just like all these amazing qualities that it has. Um, And so we like at that company, we were selling some like anodized titanium chopsticks that were usually like dipped in solid colors or whatever. So that's how I kind of found out about it, that like
Mm-hmm.
titanium turns in all these colors. Um, but it's usually like it's not really painterly how it's anodized. It's usually like dipped
Yeah.
or like rainbows and like, it's used in a more industrial places like anodizing bicycle parts or like
Mm-hmm.
boats or like in this sort of like geeky sort of like maybe anodized titanium pen or whatever,
Gotcha. Yeah.
it exists in this like sort of more industrial realm. And so the person that I was working with was like, he knew that I'm up for anything. Like I was like collecting garbage, I was oxidizing steel, like for my own personal work and like wood carving. I was just like all over the place with what I was
Mm-hmm.
doing at the time. And he was like, "Hey, I have this DC power supply that I've had laying around for like 2 years. It's just like collecting dust. Do you want to just take it home?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll take it home." I was like, "All right, well, take a couple of titanium chopsticks with you just so that you have something to test it on." Um, and so I looked up like the how to create anodizing, like how to anodize titanium. And then I was like, well, I think that I can actually connect my brush into this setting, because like, you usually dip titanium in this, the same solution of just
Mm-hmm.
water and baking soda. And then you can have a cathode. And I was like, well, what if my brush was a cathode? Because it's also made of aluminum or steel, which is the
Mm-hmm.
same material that is used for that. And so I was like, let me test it out. And I tested it out. And I mean, within the first brush strokes, like I was just like my mind just absolute like I just exploded.
You're like, Eureka. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. Just because he gave that, that amazing person gave you that gift. Isn't it amazing? Like how somebody like you don't even know that like this thing that he's about to give you is about to catalyze a whole different direction in your journey,
Absolutely.
like that
Yeah.
you had no idea about. Like, oh my God, what a beautiful like, like think you can call it serendipity or you can destiny or
Yeah.
whatever,
It's like
but
the
like it's
practice always
unbelievable.
there. Like thinking back, I'm just, like the holistic medicine or this job that I had. Like I just think that how, we're always on our path. Like,
Hmm. We're being
sometimes,
led for sure. I mean, I
yes.
feel that way very strongly just
Yeah.
based on my experiences in my life and all the serendipitous moments and happenstance of meeting certain people who point you in a certain direction or give you something that is going to catalyze this or that. Like there's, you know what I mean? There is
Yeah.
like, and it's always in retrospect that you kind of understand
Yes.
why that happened the way it did, even like your suffering, I think like back when I was like in the midst of like my physical battle and mental battle with my, you know, and out in those moments, it was horrific. I was just like, but looking back, I'm like, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Like that
Yeah.
experience led to so many beautiful, important moments in my life that are leading me here. But in the
Yeah.
moment feeling it, you don't recognize it.
Definitely.
So it's just, hindsight's 2020, right? That's what
Yep.
but
Yep.
man, that's so cool that's like sort of like how that kind of like built up to lead you to where you are now. I have to ask, just because you're working with electricity, like safety, like how do you make sure that you don't get electrocuted? Like what's your like what's the safety protocol for doing something like this?
Rubber.
Like you wear rubber gloves or
Yeah, I
like
have like these long rubber gloves, and I like obviously try to not touch the sheet with my body. So
yeah, you just got to be
that's
really careful. But man, that's what makes it even more like badass and amazing too, because like you don't fuck with their shit like just randomly. Like, you got to be really thoughtful, careful,
yes.
very mindful, very
Yeah,
present. Talk about
definitely.
like being so present and being focused and so connected in the moment, because not only is like art doing that anyway, but like you're working with a very precarious tool that like needs high sense of sensitivity and
Yeah.
respect. for
Yeah.
what's happening here. So like I can imagine like your mindset and your state of consciousness when you're working is so heightened and sharp and aware. Do you feel that way when you're working? Like you just feel like so like hyper aware of what's
I do.
happening?
Yeah, I feel like like my painting practice can only happen if I am in harmony and like
Mm-hmm.
more or less homeostasis
Yeah.
space, grounded space. Yeah, it's really unique, and like I value my mindful practices now even more
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like I can't really just like be in the chaos of life and just kind of like jump into this.
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to happen. It's nothing is going to happen out of that. So like, Vipassana meditation and yoga or some sort of physical activity, and just my body being well, enough
Yeah.
hydration, feeling energetic, feeling it's kind of like, how people prepare for channeling. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like the same sort of thing where
Ex-
you really need to have things in order to kind of receive and
ex-
have energy pass through you.
exactly. It's you have to create the container, and that's why the power
Yes.
of ritual is so important, at least for me, like creating this ritual around painting and this like really like getting your consciousness and your heart, like all these things aligned so that you
Yeah.
can become a vessel. Because at the end of the day, like I think anyone is being honest about their creative practice, like they know that there is this something, it's not just them. There's this
Yeah.
energy, something that's moving through them that's influencing their decision making on some level, and some more than others depending on how open you are to
Yeah.
those ideas. But I firmly believe that like we want to become this vessel so the creative energy of the universe, of the spirit that guides all things, moves through us so that
Yeah.
it can create art that hopefully not only can, for me, and I feel like you probably feel this way too, can be like a way for us to cultivate greater healing in ourselves. But at also the end point, like the image and the work itself can be a beacon of healing or insight or beauty or some kind of like spiritual potency for others on some subtle level of consciousness. Like in an ideal world, that's, I think, what I hope for my work. And I would
Yeah.
imagine that's probably aligned with what your
Definitely.
intentions are too, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely. I feel like in my work, I'm trying to portray and create like a state of resonance, a state of like to portray the world as I'm more and more finding out that this is how it really is, but also to create an experience in which people are sensing the work beyond sort of like this visual experience where it can be felt in the body or like it
mhm.
felt like you're experiencing this kind of field,
Yeah.
and hopefully being in that field can help to become more aware or um to inspire more consciousness or
Mhm.
you know
Yeah, definitely.
balance. Yeah.
Because I think on some level, and these are my own thoughts, like anyone out there might disagree with me, and that's great. I like when that happens because I don't know shit. But like I feel sometimes that like just based on like talking to people like you, observing life, being a father, having my own journey, like we're all like on this path of healing. We're trying to find a way to let go of whatever these obstacles are in our mind, in our body. Sometimes they manifest like as physical obstacles,
Yeah.
mental, emotional obstacles, and we're
Yeah.
we're trying to find a way to like basically like undo the damming that's happened in our
Yes,
channels. Like we've like kind of gotten
definitely.
dammed up. And how do
Hmm.
we destroy the dam so the energy can flow in its natural rhythm and way again?
Yeah.
And I think art is, all forms of art are such potent ways of helping people unclog or like undam. That's such a terrible word. I don't know a better word for it, but like I think you know what I'm getting at. Like
Yeah.
releasing. not holding back the energy and coupling it and kind of pigeonholing it in certain parts of our self and letting it flow unencumbered. And that's where it can do its work to heal us and bring us back into that harmony. And like you said, the word you said, like homeostasis, the state of like complete harmonious balance of like mind, body, spirit. And you know what it's like when you're in that space, and no one's in it all day, every day. I mean, maybe there are some people, but for me, I know like I'm trying to extend those experiences as much as I can
Yes,
throughout my day, as often as I can.
the
But
dance.
yeah, it's like life is so unpredictable and
Yeah.
complicated, and I still have all these patterns in my mind of and attachments to certain ways of thinking that can
Yeah.
kind of hinder that experience. But now that like you can create space and recognize it and let it go, like you can tap back in pretty easily the more you practice it into the flow of the moment
Yeah.
and be
Yeah.
fully just aware and I think appreciative of just the majesty and mystery of what's happening around us. Like that's where I feel most myself is
Yeah.
when I'm in this state of wonder and awe and gratitude and appreciation of just the magical mystery of life. Cause like I'm looking around right now, like I have these big windows in this room I'm in, just like looking at the trees are like blooming, like everything's coming back to life in spring. And like it's just like I can just go outside and just observe that. And I can just feel so alive and
Yeah.
so connected to everything around me that it just like everything else just pales in comparison. And I can just let go all the BS. But it's easier said than done. It's definitely a continual
Of course.
practice for
Yeah.
sure.
No, I
Um,
resonate with what you said so much. And I feel like that's where, with that healing, that's where the real change is at for our
mhm.
world, because we spend so much time conversing about all of these issues that we have all over the place.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about, um it's more of like a slow, not necessarily slow, but it's more like it can seem to some people as like shifting away into some different road for that healing. It doesn't seem as direct of like,
Mhm.
oh, there's issues, let's like get together and fix them, you know
Yeah.
but it's like the real way to fix them, is for us to shift our
Yeah.
way of being, and with our being, and with the shift and the healing of our vibration, our perspective, and our mind, then we can have this different way of relating to the world altogether.
Exactly. Oh man.
That's where I feel like that change is at. And it may seem, when I try to talk about it sometimes, it may seem like selfish, or like, oh, you're so focused on yourself, we have so much stuff going on here.
Yeah.
But it's not, because I feel like with more awareness of yourself, everything is a mirror, everything is holographic,
Hmm.
like with more awareness of yourself, you therefore have more awareness of the world.
Exactly. You can see beyond like the distraction of what's on the surface that's
Yeah.
meant to pull you away from that, right? And you can penetrate to like the core of like where all of the issues are really manifesting from. the
Yeah.
the sense of separation, the violence, the aggression, the lack of empathy,
Yeah.
the sort of like selfish tendency for survival to like hoard and to obscure the truth in order to elevate your status. Like all of
Yeah.
these are ego games. And
Yeah.
like there's the individual ego that we all possess, but there's also the collective ego of the planet
Hmm.
that we're all connected to as well. And we have to, in order to shift that, we have to, everyone else it has to shift on that individual level. So it's like that taking responsibility
Yeah.
for our own consciousness is really the ground that we have to, it's literally like how we put nutrients back in the soil of
Yeah.
life by doing it ourselves. And if more and more people
Yeah.
do that, then that starts to become, I think, there's a resonance that builds where it's like the gravity that builds on that just overwhelms the whole system. But
Yeah.
like we, but you can't do that if we're all just fighting on the surface and not
Yeah.
really getting to the core of the issue, which is the false sense of separation from reality, that we are
Yeah.
separate entities living an isolated life, unconnected from all that's around us in the abyss or the
Yeah.
void of meaninglessness.
Yeah.
And that's like kind of where our contemporary culture
Definitely.
seems to want to reside more. So no wonder there's so much conflict and
Yeah.
confusion and pain and unnecessary pain and suffering that we inflict on each other. So it's a tough thing to communicate though for someone who hasn't been on that journey themselves and haven't
Yes.
had those potent personal experiences that reveal to them the nature of what you and I are pointing
Mhm.
at. And so like how do we like on a mass or more collective level initiate people into like even just a tiny morsel of that experience to kind of like almost like tear a little hole in the fabric,
Yeah.
and so that over time that hole will just open on its own. But like
Yeah.
sometimes we have to like pierce through that a little bit and begin that process. And I think art of all kinds can be a way of piercing that veil, piercing that layer of those boundaries that people put up that keep them feeling separate from
Yeah.
everyone else and trapped in that illusion. How do we dissolve that illusion? Ultimately, I don't know, but I think that what you're saying is for me right on the money, that like the only thing that we can do is we can engage within ourselves and cultivate our own consciousness for the
Yeah.
sake of the collective. And anyone who doesn't understand that process can definitely see that as selfish, but when it's being done authentically and when it's being done with that pure heart and that pure intention, like
Yeah.
to me that's like the only thing to do at this
Absolutely.
stage. And then you'll be guided to, if you're in a position to influence people and put forth certain type of action in the world, or to create greater influence, you'll be put in that position when the
Yeah.
time is right. But at the end of the day, we just have to like be authentic in the way we live and continue to like unmask ourselves,
Yeah,
and see.
definitely.
Yeah, but it's a life path, and it's not something that's just like going to happen in an instant moment, at least for the vast majority of us. Like we have to work hard at it. We have to be
Yeah.
intentional. We have to meet the universe halfway, meet God halfway, meet the energy, the intelligence that is underpinning all of reality. We have to do our part too. And it's an amazing thing to begin, but it's also tough too, because like for
Yeah.
me, like I struggle with like wanting it to happen faster too, because it is like it feels like such a slow,
Yeah.
subtle process, but like that's
Yeah.
just the way it works, and we have to just
Yeah.
surrender to that.
It's kind of like reprogramming, and we
Mhm,
have so many programs that we operate on, and it's a tough thing to turn that into a reverse or grow, like just reprogram that and like,
mhm,
but that's when I feel like for me, that's where like more acceptance and grace gets grown as well, when you observe yourself like back at the same pattern or like
mhm.
back being triggered by something,
Yeah.
feel like I've been there so many times. When is this gonna end?
Yeah, when will this pattern finally like
Yeah.
release, and it will when it's supposed to, but
Yeah, and
yeah.
like maybe, traces of it will remain in our lifetimes, but like that awareness and that acceptance, I feel like
Mhm.
it matters so much.
Exactly. Like don't get so attached to like this idea of trying to be perfect. Like
Yeah,
no one's perfect. And I don't know. And I think that's the beauty of living this, earthly existence. It's kind of this plane is the meeting of all opposites. It's the
yeah,
dualistic experience that's giving us the ground to understand more what unity is, what non-duality is. You have to, you have to kind of like live out this dualistic experience and live the paradox that is a human existence.
yeah,
But like for me, like I've always been drawn to the archetype of like, I guess I consider kind of archetype of the bodhisattva, which is kind of this idea of like in Buddhist philosophy and their cosmology, like to create this intention to become as fully aware and enlightened as you can, and only for the sake of being of service to others. And
Yeah.
like you will delay your ultimate, you know, enlightenment until every single being has walked through that gate. And then you're kind of the last ones to walk through. It's kind of like a warrior path in a way, not warrior in terms of aggression,
Yeah.
but like the
Yeah.
spiritual warrior archetype, in a way,
Yeah.
like being willing to go into the realm of suffering and confusion and illusion with the intention of trying to bring people out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just always love that. And so for me, like when I get caught up in my own ego, my own sense of entitlement or my own sense of attachment, I just try to like get deeper into like who I actually am, which is this field of loving awareness and consciousness,
Mhm.
that only really deeply wants to just be of service. And when I'm in that role, I feel most myself. And I
Yeah.
think my art practice is one form of the service that I want to give in
Mm.
this particular life. And it's really, for me, it's been such a beautiful refuge for those times when I get lost, you know, to
Absolutely.
remember like what the role is. I signed
Yeah.
up for this. This is the role that I want to play.
Yeah, and that's how we kind of get out of this sort of individualistic, separated from the rest
Hmm.
position in which we suffer. You know,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
that's the end result of that. And I feel
Hmm.
like I love how you said that art is a service.
Hmm.
Really, really, it really is. Because,
Yeah,
and I do also believe that I do have a lot of faith in art influencing and changing the world because um, it connects to people on deeper than mental planes.
exactly.
You
Yeah.
know, you can kind of like art can much quicker transport some information or energy than anything else.
Hmm.
It's just like just by being the viewer, you're already affected.
Exactly.
Your subconsciousness has already something happened there already. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's a beautiful way to communicate on the energetic level, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, like the art is almost like it's creates this bridge of communication between one consciousness and another. Even if you're not aware of that communication, like you said, on the subconscious or unconscious level, like it's being transmitted on that quantum level. Like I have
Yes.
this weird feeling and thought, and I think a lot of quantum physics and studies and scientific research kind of backs this up a little bit, but like the intention that I put into the action has a resonance that holds that reverts back out of it. So like if I'm painting and all I'm thinking about is how much I love the universe and how much I want to transmit compassion and love and healing, then that sort of signature, that
Yeah.
tonal vibration of that thought pattern, that wave, is encoded and encased in the marks that then will come back out to whoever sees them on some subtle quantum level. Right. And like that might feel very heady for people out there. Like, that's pretty grandiose, Martin.
But it is, I
But
mean,
like,
it's getting more and more backed up
there
by
is, yeah,
science
the
these
intention,
days.
like the observer effect, and how the intention of the mind and the consciousness creates a certain energetic signature.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. And whether, ultimately that ends up being disproven or not, like I'm going to live in that, that world because it feels so authentic,
Yeah.
for me to be that way. But, I don't
And
know. They're just, yeah.
it informs what the art becomes.
Hmm. Big
Even
time.
with the quantum fields conversation, it does.
Yeah.
There's no way to lie in art. It's
Yeah.
like, you know,
Yeah.
so if you're
Especially when you're true, when you're like
yeah,
authentic and you're really like exploring.
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah. And for me, like that's what keeps it fresh as an artist, is the constant exploration, the feeling of like evolution and growing and trying to further refine how you can become a channel. It's like tuning yourself over and over again to become as refined as you can to channel the energy that you're supposed to channel through the work that you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
has nothing to do with fame or notoriety or anything like that. Like that's part of the ego game. That's part of the delusion of this reality that we're living in, this
That would be,
obsession with status, this obsession with being someone important. Like
yeah,
that is the road toward delusion, because
absolutely.
everyone and everything is of the utmost level of importance, right? That there
Yeah.
could ever be, like, and it can't exist without anybody. You know what I mean? We are all, but it's, I don't know, it's just, it's complicated because in duality, like we can create separation, we can create hierarchy, we can create
Yeah.
categorization, and we can create this false perception of better or worse,
Yeah.
good and bad. But like on this level, like this transcends the duality, where everyone exists on an even playing field of loving awareness.
Yeah. And I just thought of this idea that Nassim Haramein talks about where, the even the smallest particles in the universe contain the signature of the whole.
Mm-hmm.
So, like these discoveries that we have now, I love it so much because like, especially for people that are not into spirituality, like this knowledge, those are not just ideas, those are like solved equations.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Exactly. It's
it
not
is,
just woo woo. Like this is part
yeah,
of like the mystery of our reality.
yeah, absolutely. So like this idea of hierarchy, of being more or less meaningful of a person based on your status, it just, starts really not making any sense when you really start to learn more and more about how the universe really works.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, that fractalized nature, like we are literally like nested inside of each other on an infinite scale, up and down, micro, macro, in and out, all around.
Yeah,
But like this human level of consciousness is so limited in its access to that experience that like it can just sound kind of a little out there, but really if you cultivate a really sharp mind with concentration through
yeah,
contemplative practice, meditative practice, spiritual practices of all kind, can penetrate through that, and you can actually embody and experience that on a visceral
yeah,
level that changes you forever.
yeah,
Right? It doesn't make you a perfect being. You're not like becoming Jesus Christ, but like
yeah,
but you're but you're tapped in. It's like almost like once you experience like that potential, then you can always get back there, you
yeah,
know, on some level. And so it's like once you get to the next level, you can always go back there. You're going to fall, you're going to go through the
yes,
trials and tribulations, the ups and downs, but now you've opened another level and portal. And the more you
yeah,
practice, the more those levels you open, the more access you have, and the more of those like points of refuge that you get, because you start to live in harmony with really like what this universe is.
yeah. And just like
Yeah.
seeing, after having a visceral experience, whether you're able to tap into it on a daily basis, as you said, like it's not always possible, but just the knowing, like having a
Hmm.
visceral experience and knowing that this is who I really am, this is
Hmm.
how life really operates, it creates a shift and
Definitely.
start to live out of a different kind of place
Definitely.
and different purpose as well.
I agree. And I feel like it's a never ending journey. I feel like you can just keep expanding your consciousness more and more and
Yeah.
more and more and more. And it's like, each level or each experience is just like, I don't know. It's just, to me, like that's what makes life also exciting and interesting. Like, we're here on this earth on some level to grow and to become more fully
Yeah.
ourselves, more connected to a greater sense of what this universe is. And
Yeah.
experience of learning and growing is like, for me, it brings such joy. Like, it's just like, oh, it's such a relief. But I understand that that's for everyone, that's not as easily accessible because of
Yeah.
our life experiences and circumstances. So you have to also have like a sense of like reality for that. And so there you got to hold that in your heart too. And so it's tough. You got to be able to hold the whole spectrum of emotion within
Yeah.
yourself without being attached to any of it.
Yeah.
That's really feels like the name of the game. Like, can you feel the greatest of sorrows and the greatest of ecstasy and the greatest of bliss all in the same moment? Can you
Yeah.
hold it all? And I think the more we expand this container of consciousness, the more we can hold all of that.
Absolutely.
And that's where you can become a real beacon of love and blessing for the people around you, strangers, friends, family alike. And that's a beautiful role to be in. We're getting really heady here. This is
I
awesome.
know.
I love it.
I
And I feel
love
like
it.
we've been talking for, a little over an hour, and I feel like we could just keep going forever.
I know. I know.
Awesome.
For
What
sure.
an amazing conversation. I'm so grateful that we connected. See,
Me too.
I think we'll have to do a part two at some point. I would love to start doing that on the podcast, like going back to previous guests and checking in with them and like, diving even deeper now that we've kind of like
Yeah.
up this dialogue. But I just want to extend so much gratitude to you for
Thank you
taking the
so
time
much.
to ramble with me about all these amazing magical weird stuff, and for the work that you're making and the intention that you're putting out there, like the experimentation with the medium you're doing. I've never seen anything like what you're doing. It's so incredible and interesting and beautiful. And everybody out there needs to connect with C on Instagram. I have like all the links in the show notes, everything right there. So please, everyone, connect with her so you can stay, up to date on all the amazing experiments and playfulness that you're doing with this, with painting with electricity, with energy and vibration. My God, how cool.
Thank you so much, Martin.
Yeah.
It's like speaking of the ripple effects and like consciousness, it's like when I'm able to connect to like when we're able to have these kinds of conversations, like I can just feel the energy just like
Yeah.
going within myself and
Yeah. We're
feeling
on
so
the same team,
inspired.
I feel like
Yeah,
we're like trying, we like the mission is very aligned in terms
yeah,
of goals in this particular lifetime, and that's
yeah,
why I love this podcast because I get to like have an excuse and a reason to reach out to people and let people reach out to me and to connect with other people who are like-minded and on this mission, but approaching it from a totally different, perspective or a different way of engaging it in their art. Like I just feel so grateful that like I can be in a position where like people will trust me to like come into this Zoom chat and like have this conversation.
yeah.
It's such a blessing. And
It's
I,
beautiful.
yeah, well, thank you so much again. And we'll obviously stay connected. And everybody out there, peace and love.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for tuning into this episode of Concerning the Spiritual and Art. If you like what we're doing here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can stay in touch and in tune with all the amazing offerings that we're going to be bringing to this channel. Thanks again for all your support. Super grateful. And excited to bring more content your way. Peace, y'all.